Every morning, as the city wakes, an elderly man walks to an empty park bench with a trembling hand clutching a small bouquet of yellow flowers. To strangers, he's just another shadow passing through the park. But behind his silence lies a story carved by loss, love, and unspoken guilt. The whispers of the wind seem to carry a voice he can't forget, a voice that once promised forever. But on one quiet morning, a little girl notices him and decides to ask what no one else ever dared to. The park came alive each morning in quiet fragments, the rustle of leaves, the metallic creak of swings, the laughter of children echoing faintly across dew-damp grass. Yet, amidst all this life, there was always one constant, the old man with the yellow flowers. Every day, at precisely 7:30, he appeared. His gait was slow, deliberate, each step measured as though he feared time itself might shatter beneath his shoes. His coat, faded brown and years too old, hung loosely around his frail frame. In his right hand, always, the bouquet, 5 yellow chrysanthemums tied together with a thin white ribbon. He never missed a day. Not in the rain, not in the cold, not even on those mornings when the sky seemed to hang low with grief. To most passers-by, he was invisible. People had learned to walk around him the way they would a lamp-post or an old tree, familiar, present, but unnoticed, except for the pigeons. They knew him well. They waited as he sat down, placed the flowers carefully on the bench beside him, and opened a small paper bag filled with crumbs. He fed them in silence, eyes fixed on the empty space across from him, the space where once, perhaps, someone used to sit. No one knew his name. Not the joggers, not the old women walking their dogs, not the teenagers skating past him with loud music leaking from their headphones. But every morning, as the first light brushed the park in gold, he'd whisper something soft, broken words that vanished into the breeze. Today, however, the rhythm changed. It began like any other morning, the world wrapped in the hush of dawn. The scent of earth and rain still clinging to the air. The old man arrived, slower than usual. His breath came short, each step trembling like a confession. When he reached the bench, he exhaled shakily and sat down, setting the flowers beside him with practiced care. But before he could begin his silent ritual, a small voice interrupted him. "Why do you always bring flowers here?" The old man looked up, startled. Before him stood a girl, no older than 7, maybe 8, with a backpack too big for her shoulders and curiosity burning in her eyes. Her shoes were muddy, her hair tangled, but her expression was earnest, the kind of innocent boldness only children possess. He blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. "What did you say?" She stepped closer, hands clasped behind her back. "I see you every day. You sit here with those flowers, but nobody comes. Who are they for?" The man's throat tightened. For a moment, he said nothing. His fingers trembled as they brushed over the petals, and his gaze drifted, not toward her, but toward the empty space across from him. "There for someone," he finally murmured. "Someone who used to sit here." The girl tilted her head. "Did she go somewhere?" He smiled faintly. But it wasn't the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "Farther than you can imagine." The girl frowned. "Like another city?" He chuckled softly, the sound dry like old paper. "No, little one. Farther than that." She sat down beside him, uninvited but welcome. Her small legs swung back and forth, not touching the ground. "My dad says people don't go that far unless they don't want to come back." The old man's eyes glistened. "Sometimes," he said, voice trembling, "they don't get to choose." Silence settled between them, the kind that carries weight, not awkwardness. The morning sounds faded, the birds, the chatter, even the wind seemed to pause. The girl looked at the flowers again. Were they her favorite? He nodded. "Every Sunday, I brought her these." She said they looked like the sun, bright enough to chase away any sadness. I didn't know back then how much sadness can hide behind a smile. The girl watched him closely. "Was she your wife?" He hesitated. "She was. Everything." There was a pause. He could feel the child's eyes on him, not pitying, not prying, just present. It had been years since someone had asked. Years since he'd said her name aloud. He almost feared it might break him if he tried. "You miss her?" the girl said quietly. He nodded. "Every day." "Then why do you still come here?" she asked softly. His gaze lifted to the sky, where the first sunlight touched the tops of the trees. "Because I promised her I would." Her eyes widened. What kind of promise? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids, the park transformed, the laughter of a young woman, the scent of jasmine in her hair, the warmth of her hand in his. He saw her sitting beside him, sketchbook in her lap, the world captured in her gentle strokes. She'd smile, tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, and say, "Promise me, if I ever go, you'll still bring the sunshine here." Back then, he'd laughed. "You're not going anywhere." But life had other plans. The girl's voice pulled him back. "Did you keep your promise?" He looked at the flowers, their color catching the light like tiny suns. "Every day," he whispered. A moment later, the wind picked up, carrying a faint whisper across the park. Or maybe it was just the rustle of leaves. But for him, it was her voice again, gentle, teasing, alive in the breeze. "You came again, didn't you?" His chest tightened. "Always," he whispered under his breath. The girl leaned forward, eyes searching his face. "Do you think she can see you?" The old man smiled sadly. "I hope so, because I still see her everywhere." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph, edges frayed, colors fading. It showed a young couple sitting on that very bench, laughter frozen in time. The girl looked at it with wide eyes. "She was pretty," she said. "She still is," he replied softly. The girl looked at him, puzzled, but said nothing. For a while, they sat together, the old and the young, two strangers bound by an invisible thread of innocence and loss. Around them, life continued. Children played, dogs barked, someone jogged past with earphones in. Yet, in that small corner of the park, time stood still. The girl finally stood up, brushing off her dress. "I have to go." My mom gets mad if I'm late for school. He nodded. Of course. She hesitated. Will you be here tomorrow? He smiled. Yes. Same time. She grinned and ran off, her laughter fading into the morning air. When she was gone, the man turned back to the empty space beside him. He touched the flowers, then the photograph, whispering something only the wind could carry. But as he rose to leave, something strange caught his eye. A small yellow ribbon lying on the ground near the bench. Not his, not from the bouquet. He picked it up slowly, staring at it, puzzled. The ribbon shimmered faintly in the sunlight, as if newly placed. And for the first time in years, a shiver ran down his spine, not from cold, but from the feeling that he was no longer alone. He looked around. The park was empty, yet the air felt different, almost expectant. He placed the ribbon carefully beside the flowers and whispered, "Is that you?" No answer, just the sound of leaves rustling and a faint, familiar fragrance drifting through the air. Jasmine. He froze, heart pounding, eyes glistening with sudden tears. The bench seemed to breathe with him, and somewhere deep within the whispering wind, he could almost hear her voice again. Don't stop coming. The next morning, the park was drenched in a pale mist, the kind that blurs edges, trees melting into fog, pathways fading into white. The usual chatter of birds was muffled, and the world felt suspended, like time had chosen to hold its breath. And there he was again, the old man, the bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums in his trembling hand. He moved slower than yesterday. Each step seemed to pull him backward, as though unseen memories clung to his ankles, refusing to let him go. His breath came shallow. The faint crunch of gravel beneath his shoes echoed louder than it should have. When he reached the bench, he stopped. Something had changed. The air, the feeling. There was no ribbon today, just the bench, the flowers, and the silence that seemed heavier than ever. He sat down, setting the flowers gently beside him, his hand lingering on the cool metal armrest where she once rested hers. He whispered, barely audible, "Morning, Anna." Then he froze, small footsteps, hesitant, uneven, approached from behind. "You came again," said a familiar voice. He turned. The little girl from yesterday stood there, her hair damp with fog, cheeks pink from the cold. "I told you I would," she added, her grin small but proud. He smiled faintly. "You keep your word. That's a rare thing these days." She shrugged. "My mom says promises are only real if you remember them." The words struck something inside him. His eyes flickered, a storm of memory behind their dull blue haze. He gestured toward the bench. "Come, sit." She climbed up beside him, swinging her legs the same way she had before. "Did you bring the flowers for her again?" He nodded. "Yes." The girl frowned slightly. "But you said she went far away. Why do you still talk to her like she's here?" He stared ahead, eyes glistening. "Because love doesn't stop just because someone is gone." The girl tilted her head, thoughtful. "But how do you know she hears you?" He smiled, a tired, knowing smile. "Because sometimes, when the wind moves just right, I hear her answer." The child went quiet, watching him with wide, wondering eyes. "Was she sick?" His hand tightened on his cane. No, he whispered. She wasn't sick. He paused, long enough that the silence began to ache. Then, as if the dam finally cracked, his voice broke open. She was a teacher, used to sit right here every afternoon grading papers. She loved children, said their laughter made her feel alive. He swallowed hard. Then one evening, there was a protest downtown. She went. She always stood up for what was right. That's who she was. The girl listened, her small hands gripping the edge of the bench. There was a clash. He continued. Police, smoke, chaos. They said she tried to help a boy who fell. His voice trembled. They said she didn't come back. The little girl's lips parted. She died? He nodded once, slowly. They said it was an accident, but there were bruises. Too many questions, no answers. His hands shook violently now. I went to the station. I begged them to tell me the truth. They said, "Go home, old man. Let it go." The girl's face tightened, confusion and anger mixing in a child's simplicity. That's not fair. No, he said softly. It's not. He leaned forward, his breath trembling. She believed kindness could change the world. But the world, he stopped, his eyes distant. It wasn't kind back. A single tear slipped down his cheek. The girl's voice was barely a whisper. Is that why you bring the flowers? He nodded. To remind the world she existed. To remind myself I still can. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the faint hum of the city in the distance. The sighing of the wind through the trees. Then the girl asked quietly, "Do you ever get angry?" He turned to her, surprised. At them, she continued. The people who heard her. His expression darkened. Every day, he said. But anger's a strange thing. It eats you from the inside until there's nothing left to love. She thought about that, then said softly, "But maybe love can eat the anger instead." He looked at her, really looked at her, as though seeing something in her that reminded him of the woman he lost. Her gentleness, her fire, her faith. He reached into his coat again and pulled out a folded letter, creased, yellowed with time. She wrote this the morning she left. I found it days later, tucked inside her sketchbook. He handed it to the girl. Her small fingers unfolded it carefully. The ink was faded, the handwriting delicate and flowing. She began to read aloud. If I don't come back, promise me one thing. Don't let silence win. Bring color to the gray. Flowers, music, laughter. Whatever it takes. Because love is louder than fear. The girl's voice wavered as she finished. That's really pretty. He nodded, his lips quivering. She believed that even broken things could still bloom. The girl looked at the bouquet beside them, bright yellow against the dull gray of morning. Then maybe she's not really gone. She said softly, maybe she's in the flowers. He smiled weakly. Maybe. The fog began to lift then, sunlight breaking through in thin golden strands. The park stirred, footsteps, chatter, life returning. The girl stood up, brushing off her skirt. I have to go now. He nodded slowly. I know. She hesitated. Will you come again tomorrow? He looked down at the letter in his trembling hands. Tomorrow, he whispered, might be different. She frowned. Different how? He didn't answer. He just smiled, placing the letter gently into her small hands. Keep it safe. She'd want someone like you to have it. Before she could protest, he rose to his feet, unsteady, but calm, a strange peace softening the lines of his face. He placed the last bouquet of yellow flowers on the bench. Then he turned toward the path leading to the lake. "Wait," she called. "You forgot your flowers." He didn't turn back. His voice drifted through the mist, quiet, steady, final. "They're not for me anymore." And then, as the sunlight swallowed him, he was gone. The girl ran to the bench, heart pounding. The flowers glowed brighter now under the morning light, impossibly vivid, as if newly placed. The air shimmered with the faint scent of jasmine. She looked around, the park full again, people moving, unaware. But to her, the world had changed. The letter trembled in her hand. She sat down on the bench, his bench, and whispered the words she had just read. "Love is louder than fear." For a moment, it felt like the wind answered Dot, and somewhere, far beyond the trees, a single yellow petal drifted through the air, carried gently, as if by unseen hands. The bench stood quietly, bathed in sunlight, no longer a place of sorrow, but of remembrance. Yet somewhere beyond that park, another story was waiting to begin.